Good morning. It's not Friday yet, so I hope everybody still has a little bit of energy left in the tank. My name is Gama Aguilar. I'm a principal program manager in Office engineering. I work on all things related to getting Office 365 working great in virtual environments, and which is what we're going to talk about a little bit today.
And I'm Sandeep Patnaik. I'm a PM on the remote desktop team working with Gama to make sure Office and VDI has a first-class experience. Welcome, everybody.
So, actually, since we're on here, I'm going to do it this way. Okay, so how many of you all have already attended or heard a little bit about the Windows Virtual Desktop that we've been talking about this week? All right, so we got some pretty good knowledge about what's going on. You all have probably seen this slide, and so you're aware of some of the feedback and some of the scenarios that we've seen as to why our customers think that deploying the desktops via virtual environments are really, really important. So I won't go into that in the detail, but when we're talking about it from an Office standpoint, historically, this isn't necessarily new. A lot of you all have been deploying virtual machines on-premise for a really long time, and have been doing that with Office Perpetual, doing Exchange on-premise and network file shares, et cetera, and things have been working generally pretty well. And what we've been seeing over the last couple of years, though, is that a lot of our customers have been telling us, like, okay, we're ready to go and modernize our desktop experience for our employees and our workers, so now we want to deploy Office 365. And we're like, yay, that's awesome. The issue is that Office 365 was never really designed to work in these types of environments. And so we started hearing some feedback from our customers as to, hey, Office 365 is somewhere from, in some cases, not functional at all, and we'll talk about some of those examples in a little bit, to it works, but it's not really that great of an experience. So what we want to talk about today is all the things that we're doing to make Office 365 in VDI or in virtual environments a first-class experience. And that's really what we want. It looks like we are a little cut off here on our slide, but it looks like that is what we wanted to communicate to you all today, is that through what we've announced earlier this week and what we've announced earlier in September, is that we are committed to making Office 365 ProPlus a first-class experience in virtual environments. Go ahead.
All right, so you guys have heard about WVD, right? One of the things that is right there is the second bullet, optimized for Office 365 ProPlus. Now, as you know, there are a lot of things that a lot of our customers do, you guys do, is hacks. You do some workarounds, you tell your end user, you know what, it should work. If it doesn't work, sorry, Microsoft doesn't support it. So instead, what we're doing now is building from ground up, right into the kernel. We have taken so many fixes and design changes into the kernel of Windows, into the kernel of Office, that these things work together. And one of the things that we're really proud of is Windows 10 multi-session. Here's the reason. As you can see, today, what you see on your left is what's there today and what you do for multi-session to save money. And guess what? It has server OS. You don't get modern apps. You get really compromised experience for the end user. They're like, oh, guess what? On my local device, I get all this beautiful Cortana and all that. What's happening? And on the right, the end user is very happy, but the IT admin is not. The company is not. They are spending 4 to 10 to sometimes even 16 times more just to give each user their own experience. Therefore, we thought, hey, guess what? There is a place in the middle. Let's do that. And it took more than 2 years to get to this place. There's so many things we had to change. And the number one thing within Microsoft, and I'm being very honest here, the number one thing that we had to change was the attitude. A lot of new things that are being built were like, oh, it works great on my 8-core 16 GB machine. Why do I care? It works great. Done, test passed, signed off, let's G8. No. On our tests, we run really dense scenarios to make sure things get exaggerated. You wouldn't do that. It's a really bad experience for the end user when you load 10 or even sometimes 15 users per core. What we did that just to show any small blip when you type shows up as a huge blip in the graph. right? So a bunch of bug fixes went into, hey, I'm typing on Cortana and things were there, right? So therefore, we went ahead and did that. We made sure it works great with Office 365 Pro Plus, and the best part that I like on that slide is it is released every 6 months. If you miss something, you give us feedback, we'll fix it in the next 6 months. It's not 3 years away. All right, now time for a demo. So, as you can see, this particular session that presentation that I'm doing right now is actually a PowerPoint running in a remote scenario. It's a presentation right out of WVD. And just to prove that I'm not bluffing here, let's zoom in to show you right about. Oh, it's being cut here. I don't know why. It doesn't show the bottom and the top of it. But
Trust us.
trust us.
It's real. It's super legit.
Well, you can actually see at the bottom, in a full screen, it's OK. You see at the bottom, it has a small glyph up there on PowerPoint, the third from right. So that's the presentation I'm doing right now, and it's running directly out of WVD. So this is where you clap. All right, let's go back to the presentation. So one of the things that is the problem area, the bottleneck, I would say, is user profile disks. Is that the only? No. All right, so non-persistent is where the money savings are. Well, you could always do persistent, behaves just like a local box, and it's fine, right? But non-persistent is where the savings are. Non-persistent is where cloud really starts to make sense. You don't want to be paying $400 per user per month, where you could give them a local device which costs, in 2 months, you make your money back, right? So instead, when we do multi-session and non-persistent, it's way cheaper. So we have done a few things like the Outlook, OST, and PST files. They used to get corrupted a lot if they were in network drives. We have done a lot of work. By no means it is done today, but by the time we GA WVD, it'll be way better, right? We have committed. This is actually a priority story for all of us, which means if there's a problem, people drop everything else to make sure it works. So that's how serious we are. The second thing that we are doing is the OneDrive sync routes. OneDrive, when you try to enlist, what happens? Network drive not supported. Right? Either you had OneDrive or not have OneDrive. And we will, in a little bit, we'll talk about what does not having OneDrive mean. Well, you already know. And the third one is OneNote Outlook, OneNote cache. The problem is if you do not have that cache, every time you launch OneNote, it'll download everything. Well, it's fine if you had one page. But we have seen a lot of people have GBs of data in OneNote. Well, it's really awesome, right? You don't have to save it. You type it, leave it, fine, copy, paste. Everything works great with OneNote. So that's the other thing that we did here. Now, let's talk about a little more about the Outlook. Wow, it's getting cut off. Is there any way we can fix the top of it? There's something on the top that's getting cut. So there are a bunch of things that we did. One of the things is you now can reduce the amount of data that gets downloaded. As you know, till 2016, we always said run Outlook in online mode, and it was, you know what, you search, it takes forever, and local desktop search did not work, and a lot of such problems were there. Now, run it in cached exchange mode. Locally, it cache, it roams with the user, with the UPD, works great. How did we make that happen? Well, Windows Desktop Search used to be per machine, which means every time the user landed on a new machine, all the data for the user was getting indexed again and again and again. Now, when you have 16 users on the same VM, oh God, we should not even get there. But I do have data in the next slide. And the other things we're doing that the Outlook team has done, for example, sync the inbox before calendar. Of course, like C comes before I, so index sync calendar doesn't make sense, right? People want to get to their email and send an email within a few minutes. That's how we want to make it, that's how easy we want to make it for the end users, and that's how they should feel good about it. And then calendar, till now, when you try to sync it, it would sync forever. So if you've been at Microsoft for 13 years, you have 80 GB of data. And if you're a PM, you have a zillion meetings. So it'll take forever to sync. Sorry, I was talking about my problems that I have had with 2016. And I'm sure you guys have similar problems. But now, when you set this window on the right saying do it for the last 3 months, things will only download for the last 3 months. Or you could, there are GPOs and there are registry keys that you could set to bring it down to a month and so on. And of course, you could reduce a bunch of folders that you sync, just like on your phone. You could say, hey, I don't want everything to sync. I want these things to sync. That was the other natural feature that we could bring in, and we did. Now, let's move on to Windows Desktop Search. I know all of you like data. So let's start with what's at the bottom. On 2016, and this is how much of CPU utilization is CPU is getting utilized when there are 100 users signing on. That is the middle column. That's the logon scenario. And the last one, the third one is where they're in a steady state. Right? Now let's look at this. 2016, we have said disable it, doesn't work in multi-user. So you use about 60%. If you run it, actually, it is 90% CPU. Like, what else are you going to do? Nothing. Just let the Windows indexer search, right? Search index. But now we work with the indexing team. We did a lot of fixes at the kernel level, and Windows search is now per user, which means that when user roams from one machine to the other, the index for the user's file in user profile goes with it. And the new VMs index understands that and says, you know what, I'm not going to index these again. I'm just going to add it to my database list of things I should search in. So it's pretty quick, right? And given that most of these machines are homogeneous, because you're building from a gold image, once it indexes the machine, and once it is up and going, it doesn't have to index anything on a regular basis. So you see the difference there on logon, only 3% extra, right? With 100 users logging in at the same time. And CPU utilization steady state, 0.2. When was the last time you saw a big feature come in with a 0.2 difference in thing? This is where you clap. And this is for the Windows search team. Now your end users will get such a beautiful experience. Now let's quickly look at how it looks. I am going to switch over. Wow. So before I started presenting, I had a full desktop session going, and guess what? It extended automatically.
Yeah. So what we're looking at here is we're streaming a full desktop session from Windows Virtual Desktop.
So this is Outlook running in a remote scenario. One of the first things you would notice, if it was possible, for some reason it is cutting off the top of it. So let me minimize this a little bit.
Yeah, that should
Then, yeah. So one of the things you'll notice right away is right under the search bar, it doesn't say Windows Desktop Search is disabled. You cannot search locally, right? How awesome is that? So for the end users, it'll be a very simple experience. And if you search for anything, let's say, is that UPS? There you go. So it starts showing up right away without any too many problems there right below that. And you can see your mails. The experience is very straightforward. The other thing I really want to show right now, because we're already here, is OneDrive.
Oh, it's getting cut off as well.
Oh, boy. Sorry for this. I didn't really notice that it was cropping things. All right.
So I'll take this one, and as Sandeep is pulling it up, some of you who might have already started down the journey of trying to deploy Office 365 ProPlus, it sounds like there's a question here. That's right. So that's what I wanted to clarify earlier.
Stealing my thunder.
Yes, so we are, this here
yes,
is, we are streaming a multi-session desktop experience from Windows Virtual Desktop. This is literally it. So we're really rolling the dice here on the demo. And so that's why it looks like, and as Peter mentioned earlier, oh, the question was, earlier we had called out that we were showing the presentation in PowerPoint that was being streamed from Windows Virtual Desktop. And so that we had called out that you could see on the icon the glyph that indicates that, hey, this is a virtualized application, right? And so the question was, we don't see that here. Is that because we're running a fully hosted Windows Virtual Desktop session? Yes. That's what we're looking at right now, and you can actually look at the date and time to see that we're in a different time zone. So this is a full Windows Virtual Desktop session that we're showing right now. And for some of you all who might have already tried to get down the journey of deploying Office 365 Pro Plus in Windows Server, for example, and you might have tried to roll out OneDrive on that, you would know that it doesn't actually work. We require that the directory that's used to be able to synchronize the documents be on that local machine. And in non-persistent deployments, you always want to leverage network-attached file locations, and that doesn't actually work. And what we're showing here is that we've made a bunch of investments into OneDrive where we have a fully functional OneDrive sync client right here. So now you will be completely unblocked to be able to deploy OneDrive in these non-persistent virtual environments. And that's really important, not just for your documents, but what we believe from an Office standpoint that makes it most important is now that it unlocks the ability to have all of our modern collaboration and co-authoring capabilities. So easy sharing and co-authoring on documents is now possible for all users, whether they're on a full client machine or on a non-persistent virtual desktop. So,
all right.
Yes, and the last thing is, because this is a Windows 10, basically a version of Windows 10, we have files on demand. And as you can see here, you can pull up any document or any folder, right-click on it, and be able to synchronize it, and then ask to be able to keep it permanently on that device.
Yeah, and one of the beauties about this is the VM is running in Azure. Your OneDrive storage is on Azure. So you don't have to worry about express route between the VM, where it's hosted, and OneDrive to get that kind of experience. You see how quickly it just went and sync all of that? That's the beauty of it. And the other thing that I was trying to show, but thanks for bringing it up, is, as you can see, there are 3 users already logged on. This is Windows 10 Enterprise for Virtual Desktop. This is a multi-user thing that I was talking about to begin with, and this is in the work. We have tested with many, many users, but we will in a little bit go about the guidance around how do you deploy, how many users per code you want, and how do you optimize even further while we go through the journey of making it the best experience. We want you guys to be involved with us. We want you to have the fingerprints and all of that. All right, let's go back to the presentation.
So we talked about OneDrive again, and we believe that the most important thing about making OneDrive work in these non-persistent virtual environments is that, yes, you get your documents, but again, it enables all of those modern collaboration and co-authoring experiences. So now it will work, files on demand will be there, and then it will automatically populate the user profile folder. So we talk to a lot of customers that have frontline workers that aren't really used to using OneDrive or cloud syncing services. So they basically go and save all their documents at the desktop or their My Documents. Well, a new capability that you have now with OneDrive is that you're able to go and redirect all those folders into OneDrive. So you can go tell a lot of those employees that are used to doing that, hey, keep doing that. But all that stuff will be saved into OneDrive. Okay, so go ahead, next slide. So when it comes to support, in the past, we have not explicitly said whether Office was supported in virtual environments one way or the other. And again, as I mentioned earlier, because this is such a critical thing for our customers, and we are making it a top priority, so now, as of September 6th, we've officially said that Office 365 Pro Plus will be supported on a number of our different operating systems. Specifically to virtual environments, there's 2 big areas that we see customers deploying it. Today, and prior to the announcement of Windows Virtual Desktop, what we primarily see is customers deploying Office or trying to deploy Office 365 on Windows Server and some edition of Windows Server. So the announcement that we made on September 6th was explicitly that Office 365 Pro Plus is going to be, or is supported on Windows Server 2016, and that it will be supported on Windows Server 2016 through October 2025. And that was really important for us, and we believe for you all, so that even though we have just announced Windows Virtual Desktop and we're super excited about it, we recognize that these types of migrations and these types of deployments are super complex, time-consuming, and expensive. So we wanted to give all of our customers ample opportunity and time to be able to deploy Office 365 ProPlus on our not the latest, but one of our newer editions of Windows Server, give you all plenty of time to be able to get that out there and start evaluating as soon as Windows Virtual Desktop becomes available, start evaluating that and figuring out if that's the right path for you. So as you can see here, we have Windows Server 2016 support will be there until October 2025. After that, that's where it'll be our kind of our cutoff date, where we want to be able to continue to have that theme of our services products are supported and get updated in line with each other, and our non-services on-premise products kind of stay with each other. From our standpoint, being able to support a product like Office 365, which literally changes on a monthly basis, with an operating system that doesn't change as often is not just expensive, but it's actually really, really difficult. So after October 2025, that's when Office 365 ProPlus, a service, will move and be supported in line with Windows 10 SAC releases, which is basically also a service. And our non-service products will stay in line with each other. So we'll have Windows Server 2019, for example, will be supported with Office 2019, because those kind of stay in line with each other. Next slide. So now we want to dive into a couple of the best practices that we have. And a lot of these things, as part of our investments in the products, we're going to be trying to automate them, especially within the Windows Virtual Desktop environment. A lot of these things will be more automated, but then see, these are some of the best practices that we have for customers that are deploying Office 365 ProPlus still in the server environment. So again, for being able to enable this persistent type of experience for non-persistent deployments, we always want to make sure that the Outlook OST file is stored somewhere in a proficient manner where it is available to people when they log in and out of their sessions. We also want to be able to move. We also recommend that people move Outlook into Exchange mode, just because of the distance between where that session host is and where we're calling into our Microsoft commercially hosted services. That could be very variable, and having Outlook running in online mode can cause some performance variances. Sandeep talked about earlier is we also now have given the functionality for admins to be able to go in and automatically set the amount of time, the slider of how much they want to be able to download and sync Outlook, emails and calendars and tasks as well. So now you have that flexibility. And in these environments, we encourage admins to be able to go in there and reduce that time frame. So even though we're making really big improvements into our user profile desk technology and Outlook, the application itself, still being able to have a smaller window that we're syncing will really create a better user experience for your workers in this environment. When it comes to Office more in general, licensing is a big thing. We've linked into this document, and we'll have it available. It's publicly available, but essentially Office needs to run in shared computing activation mode. And there's documentation online as to how you can go and do that. Within the Windows Virtual Desktop environment, our plans are to go and automate that and make it as easy as possible so that the admins don't need to do anything really special when it comes to the licensing aspects of Office. And the last thing is around authentication. So we really encourage admins to be able to deploy single sign-on. So that way, again, when users are signing into their session and into all the different Office applications, you can leverage those operating system login credentials and don't have to be prompted over and over again as they're using different Office applications. And again, within Windows Virtual Desktop, which is our North Star for being able to provide Office in a virtual environment, all that stuff will be automated.
So now this slide is the most important slide for all of us. We are on this journey where we are releasing monthly updates to Office. And given that the Office engineering team and the Windows team are leaned in to make sure the experience for the end user is awesome, please use these mechanisms. As an end user, every single Office product has a way in which you can send your things you like, but more importantly, things you don't like, or you have suggestions that you think can improve. Now, most of the time, it is a lot of small things, but if you can send in, hey, put in some information like virtual desktop or WVD or something like that, so that it raises up to, raises up to the top, saying that, hey, this is a virtualized scenario. Of course, we have a lot of telemetry, but there's no way for us to correlate the information that way. And IT admins and partners, please use the online support. Please use Fast Track if you need something really nice and quick. We are really moving fast. Like monthly cadence literally means 2 weeks of coding and testing and out, and goes on and on and on. We want to make sure all your fingerprints are on those features and the fixes that we build. And I'm telling again and again is because as a community, we will really be successful than just me and Gamma sitting there and trying to play something there. Right, Gamma?
Yes.
And please reach out to your account team as well. That is, they are your voice for us, because the many things that you guys have, it's not just for that user, it's to do with the environment around it. What kind of networking do you have? What kind of resources on-prem versus in cloud? How are you using SQL versus other public data APIs or something? Because a lot of things like Excel macros or Excel plugins or Outlook plugins, a lot of those things might be things that you guys are already using, and we want to make sure that we know about it, we test around that, and make sure it has a great experience there. A quick call to action. To do all this, I urge you to please go sign up for the preview at WVD Preview. If you haven't already, please go do that. We want to make sure that we start hitting our quality goals up front, rather than going to GA and learn about all this. So please go there. We will send you an email once we hit public preview later this year, and it'll be awesome to have all of you right there. Here are a bunch of sessions. There's one that's dedicated on multi-user Windows 10. I'll go deeper into what else have we done, what are the other optimizations like CPU, memory, and all that. We'll talk about those. There are some of the other things that you see here are from the past, but you can absolutely go and look at the recordings and stream them. Awesome. Quickly about a quick reminder of the timeline. WVD, we have announced it. It is going public preview later this year, GA early next year. So it's not too far away.
And one other thing that I want to call out about related to the timeline is that although Windows Virtual Desktop is our North Star of where we want to make Office 365 Pro Plus really, really shine, the vast majority of the improvements that we've talked about that we're making to Office 365 and our user profile list are going to be made available right around the same timeline or shortly after that, the GA timeline, for customers that are deploying Office 365 Pro Plus on Windows Server 2016. So we're not going to leave you all behind. We really want to encourage you all to be able to get Office 365 Pro Plus out there.
All right. To summarize, Microsoft WVD, multi-user optimizations for Office 365 Pro Plus, and the timeline. Those are 3 things we want you to take back and make sure that we are aligned with your vision as well, because that's where our goal is. Like Satya said in his keynote, it's not about the Microsoft brand. It's about the brand that builds on top of Microsoft platform, and that's you.
So that's it in terms of content. We knew that given all of the sessions that we've had so much that we've had already around Windows Virtual Desktop, there'd be a lot of questions. So we actually left an ample time here for questions. So yeah, let us know what kind of questions. Step up to the microphone and let us know if you have any questions on Windows Virtual Desktop, or again, specifically on Office 365 Pro Plus deployments in virtual environments. So step on up.
So I had 2. Hello, is this on? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
So I had 2 questions. You mentioned that these are coming to the Windows Virtual Desktop. Are they coming to any of the other Windows 10 SKUs that you can run on VDI, like Windows 10 Enterprise?
Got it. So the question, just to repeat, was we said most of these, or the all of these improvements are going to be coming to Windows Virtual Desktop. The majority of them are going to be being available specifically targeted to Windows Server 2016. And then, so the question though was, are going to be available to other Windows endpoints? So technically, I think the answer is yes. For supported operating systems, it's just that we're really optimizing them again for the higher density operating systems. So yes, for the most part, but you probably won't get as much bang for your buck out of like Windows 10.
Well, generally talking about non-persistent, because a lot of these fixes are for non-persistent scenarios, the answer is yes. For Windows 10 and Windows 10 multi-user. Not really for 2016. Okay. Because they are fixes that are going into the Windows side as well as Office side.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You said yes, a second question you had too?
Oh, yeah. I guess it's a little, I noticed like on the 16.0, are we stuck on 16.0 forever? Or with Windows just going on and on? Or I mean, Office going on and on?
Oh, sorry.
So Office 16.0, like 19 came out, but hopefully we're not changing to 19.0 for our paths and stuff.
I'm not sure.
It's a good question. We'll have to find out.
Yeah.
Okay.
I believe the plan is to stay still on this.
That would be good. Okay.
Yeah, from the Windows side, it is going to be 10.0 forever, I guess. That's what
yeah.
you understand. So it makes a lot of sense to have the similar cadence. It's more of a monthly cadence if you really want to think about it.
Just nice for policies and stuff. So.
Yeah. All right. Thank you. Question here, quick.
Yeah, so we use AD Connect and ADFS to have the user password change experience be seamless. AD Connect has about a 3 to 5 minute delay from the time that you change the password, and that's why we use ADFS. Any improvements coming there so we can drop the need for ADFS?
So good question. We'll take back that feedback. I don't know the answer, Christian. No? All right, we'll get back to you on that. I know who you are, so thanks for asking that.
Yeah, hi. So the multi-session Windows, will that be available to enterprise customers to run on-prem as the VDI OS? That's first question. And second question is, what about Teams, which also has some issues?
So the answer to the first question is, it is part of WVD only. So it is going to be Azure only. It won't be available for on-prem, the multi-session, multi-user Windows 10. And for the second one, with Teams, our goal is, the vision is still the same, to make it the best experience. We know that we have some way to go, and we're working very closely with the team to make sure we bring in improvements to our protocol so that real-time video conferencing and audio conferencing works at par with local teams.
So similarly on that, for some of you that might have already gone through this journey with Skype for Business, we had already made a number of investments there to make basically Skype for Business work in non-persistent VDI or VDI in general. So per Stanley's point, that is the same goal that we have. We just don't have as concreteness, but absolutely, Teams is a priority for us, and we will make sure that it runs great in non-persistent VDI.
The per user Windows search then, will that only be on Azure, or will you fix that on the on-prem Win 10 SKUs as well?
The desktop search?
Yeah, that
it is in Windows 10 as well, on-prem, yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The per user?
Yes.
Okay.
Per user desktop search is in Windows 10, yeah.
All these features you talked about Outlook, are they also available on-prem?
On-prem for Windows 10, yes. Windows 10 multi-user is only on Azure. So the answer is no for that.
So, so to clarify though, a lot of I think you're asking is a lot of the improvements that we've made into Outlook, yes, the vast majority of them, unless they were specifically about multi-user and VDI, they're actually improvements that are being rolled out across the board for Outlook. So
I'm actually talking about non-persistent Windows Server 2019 RTS servers.
No, so the support story, like Gama mentioned a little earlier, Office 365 ProPlus is not supported on Windows Server 2019. It is the perpetual, Office 2019 perpetual that is supported there. So for on-prem Windows Server RDSH, you'll have to use Office 2019 perpetual, which does not come with things like co-authoring and collaboration and all that.
And cache mode?
Well, it'll have the same problem mainly because, So if you're using cache mode with local Exchange,
Yes.
yeah, that should be okay. Because Server
I'm
2019,
sorry, no, with Office 365, Exchange Online.
So you're saying Windows Server 2019,
Yeah.
you will be able to deploy Office 2019. Office 365 ProPlus will not be supported on that. Office 2019 Outlook within that is supported to be connecting into Office 365 services.
In cache mode.
Yes, you will be able to do that. Yes.
Okay.
so all the improvements to Windows desktop search per user is also in 2019. Yes. So you will be able to make use of those benefits.
Perfect. Thank you.
Take that.
Hi.
Okay.
Can you good? Yep. I saw you were streaming some of these Office 365 apps, where you can remote desktop and use them directly from your RDP session, right? What if you have custom Win32 applications that you've wrote? Like how do you expect those to work? Will they be? Can you work with them in a streaming mode?
Yep. By streaming, do you mean remote app, or do you? Yes,
remote app, yeah.
absolutely. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, but I can absolutely show a quick demo of that. So this is Start menu, and here on the left you see a lot of other applications that are available to stream. So you could pick up any of these applications to absolutely do it. It opened up here, but yes, so that's Paint.
You don't expect anything that we would have to do to the app to make it compatible that way?
Nope. If it is compatible with Windows 10, then it will work here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Hi again. So we have customers on RDS on Server 2016 running Office 365 ProPlus. So they want to move to Server 19. So I would have to switch them to Office Perpetual, right? So they already have Office 365 licensing and everything in place. Can they use their existing Office 365 license in Office 2019 Perpetual, or would they have to buy new licenses for that switch?
Oh, I am desperately looking for my licensing person. I do not have enough information to answer that, so I'd have to follow up. Maybe if I could get your information afterwards, I could follow up on that. Yeah.
I'll give you my card.
Yeah. Thank you.
We are at the booths, so we can absolutely stop by there. We have Shubham there at the booth who can answer these questions for you.
Go ahead.
So I just want to try and string some things together. So if we have RDS customers, we've got RDS customers, and they want to go to 2019. They will not be able to use a service-connected version of Office. So Microsoft 365 and those subscriptions will be unavailable to them because they can only take an on-prem SKU for Office.
So,
and will they also not be able to use things like OneDrive for Business, Files on Demand? Are those things out of reach because they're on RDS?
not out of reach, just a little bit more complicated. So Office 2019 Perpetual, those applications will be able to connect to Office 365 connected services. However, so for example, the easy one is Outlook and Exchange Online. So those customers, if they go on Server 2019 and you deploy Office 2019, but they also want to deploy Exchange Online as a work stream, that client will be supported to connect into that commercial services. By default, they will not be able to. They will not have OneDrive for Business, and because of the operating system, it won't be as good of a OneDrive for Business experience. So there's more complexity around being able to deploy OneDrive at that level. And for us, I think what we think the most important thing on top of that is that the actual desktop clients of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and the other Office applications, they will not have as many or as much of the modern collaboration and co-auth and intelligence services in those desktop applications, if that makes sense. So their integration into OneDrive for co-auth and collaboration won't be as seamless as it is in the Office 365 version of those desktop applications. So not out of reach, it's just, it turns into kind of a duct taping together solution. And that's where it goes again. And part of what I said during the presentation was that it gets more complicated for us to build that compatibility and to support that compatibility over time. So if they really want to be able to have, again, the modern productivity experience with Office 365, we really encourage you and the customers to evaluate Windows Virtual Desktop.
Okay. So the net consequence is that and the enhancements you talked about just now, which would follow around WVD release, wouldn't fall into the Office 2019 release because that will have come and gone, presumably. So if they want that modern experience as you've described it, the path for them is they must move to WVD only hosted in Azure because that's the only location it's available.
That's right, post October 2025. In the short, medium term is to stay on Windows Server 2016, if that's what they're on right now, or migrate to that, and then have Office 365, which will be pretty dang good. But to having that really long-term, full modern experience, we're putting that into Windows Virtual Desktop. Yes.
Microsoft should make Windows Virtual Desktop an option on premise, at least in their roadmap.
Agreed.
For some companies, going into the cloud isn't an option because they need the performance proximity to where the data is on premise.
Yep.
And I understand you want to have an easier solution to manage, but that's fine. But give us a solution that we can still run on premise.
So the feedback was, and it's totally valid, right, is then Microsoft should make Windows Virtual Desktop available on premise. Totally hear you. That's something that we absolutely evaluated, and at this time, the decision we made, there's a number of factors that go into it, is that we're not going to make that happen. So thank you for the feedback. We'd love to continue hearing it, but at this time, given the information that we have and the priorities that we have, we just that's not what we're deciding to do right now. The multi-user, the Windows 10 with multi-user is only available on Windows Virtual Desktop. I think this one.
So for the Office benefits specifically, the OST improvements, the OneDrive cache location, the OneNote cache location, are those available even to the on-prem environments like an RDS or Citrix XenApp, where multi-user, and then so I'll start with that one.
The answer is yes. So in that similar time frame, we're going to make those available. Our target deployment environment is going to be Windows Server 2016. Technically, it'll work, if customers on Windows Server 2008, R2, et cetera, just the support window for that is a lot smaller.
And that was my second one. I saw on the chart 2012, Server 2012 supported through up until 2020.
That's right.
So I was just making sure that really was. It wasn't green, but it is supported till 2020 to do this.
Yeah, and thank you for the call out. So the green was basically the net new stuff. The things that were not green, we've have communicated those support positions for, I think, well over a year or so. Yep.
Three questions, basically. The first is around protocol with the streaming services and the apps, and so how is that set up and running for Windows Virtual Desktop? The second one is an auth model, and so is that integrated SSO if it's Azure AD Active Directory join? And then the third one is around copy-paste restrictions for a streaming app or a streaming virtual desktop between an end user's device, and is it all type of stuff supported in kind of a desktop as a service sort of way?
Yeah, I can take that. So the protocol is remote desktop protocol. So that's what we use for remote apps. So the same thing that's there, but now we are on the 10.5 version, so we have brought in a lot of optimizations and all that. The second, authentication, yeah. So it cannot be Azure AD joined yet. It can either be on-prem AD joined or AAD domain services joined. So those things work, not Azure AD yet.
Now, when you authenticate to the virtual desktop, though.
Yeah, that's AD. AD is fine.
So you're putting in your AD creds, you spell multi-factor off, all of that stuff.
Yep, all that works great.
But not SAML. So if I have an Azure AD joined laptop, I should theoretically be able to have that SAML token pass up through that to that thing if you guys are supporting SAML, and not have to have the user sign in again.
Christian, does that work?
If you already have your Azure AD token for a managed device, then that handles the log on to Azure.
Okay, cool.
So just to repeat what Christian said, if the token is already available on the device you're trying to connect from, then it should just work.
Cool. And then the last one was the copy, paste, cut.
We have group policies around this, and the IT admin can do control that. So answer is the IT admin has full control over what can be done and what cannot.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I have a question. The improvements to Office, OneNote caching, all this kind of stuff, would that work on a physical device, let's say, with a non-persistent profile, a temporary profile? Is that a scenario you consider at all? It's not really VDI, but I'm not sure even what's typical in our environment. We have RDS with temporary profiles on servers. We have Windows 10 with persistent profiles on non-persistent VMs.
Yeah, so that should already be working. The main issue, if it's a non-persistent, even with a VM or just a straight up box, it actually should work already. The reason that we're making all these investments is that when in a non-persistent environment, the user logs in, a session is dynamically spun up, and a network attached user profile disk will go in there and populate their stuff. But when the user logs off, a lot of that stuff could get lost, or it does get lost.
The same applies if you have a temporary profile. If you're forcing temporary profiles, same thing happens.
I see.
So I would like to understand a little more. When you're forcing temp profiles, what is the scenario there? Like the end user always gets a temp profile, the same temp profile, or?
No, they get every time they log on, it's as if they've never been there before, even if they log off and straight back in.
Okay.
Mandatory profile.
Oh, okay.
Maybe let's follow up offline if you don't mind, because I think I really want to make sure that I understand a little bit more. I see the connection now, but yeah.
My question is just in terms of, we have some clients that don't have persistent internet, or they have like internet outages in 20, 30, 40-second intervals throughout the day, just because their internet provider is not the greatest where they are. In terms of the new apps and the new Windows 10 multi-user, if someone's working on a large Word document, a large PowerPoint document, are we still abiding by the remote apps and it just loses the data, or is there some kind of cache feature that person's not going to lose their data if they were to have some kind of internet outage? And what's like the reconnection time and everything like that for all the remote apps and the remote desktop environments?
What you just talking about is exactly what happened to us here.
Okay.
So I was doing this, and they're trying to connect the display.
Yeah.
The network was going on and off.
Yeah.
And behind the scenes, for the end user, they'll see a pop-up saying trying to reconnect. It comes back up because the session is actually running on a VM in Azure, which is pretty stable. Azure has a very high SLA for uptime. So the session is there, the data is there, everything as it is. In fact, the state of the app is still the same, because we're just streaming the app, the UI of the app and the controls, but not really the data from the app. It's just kind of screen scraper is what you could say, but it's really the protocol that's what we're using. So the user will not lose any data, and the reconnect time is, overall it depends on how many levels of authentication, how you set it up, but it's super fast. It should be auto reconnect. We tried 20 times to auto reconnect. If it fails, that's when we say, hey, please put in your credentials again.
Yeah, okay, perfect, thank you.
What about printers? Are those supported?
Yep. So one of the things that we are doing with all this is making sure our partners, like ThinPrint, they are all involved. So if you have regular printing needs, then we do print redirection, which works today great, and we have made some improvements in the latest protocol. But if there are really complicated networks, I'm sure printing network can get super complicated, and that's when you need additional partners who are already there today. It continues to work as it is without any changes there.
And on a similar vein, we were not as risky in our demo today, but I think Scott Guthrie in his keynote actually showed other peripherals. So he actually did inking, touch, et cetera. So via the remote desktop protocol, we are supporting a lot of those hardware-specific capabilities.
I have a similar question as the gentleman with the mandatory profiles, but it's a little different. We're in education, so we have students who will log into, like a new lab computer every day, for instance. So in the current ProPlus that we have deployed, should those OneDrive notebook caches and the Outlook cache where it doesn't take up as much CPU with the indexing, does that already exist? on just regular physical Windows 10 with Office Pro Plus installed, like if they logged into a new computer every day?
So the main thing that is required to make sure that the indexing is super fast is that the user profile data is stored somewhere and it roams with the user. So as long as you have some kind of user profile roaming either through offline VHDs or through RUP, it'll just work. The details, to keep it very simple, all the index is stored in percentage user profile percentage in a particular location. So wherever that goes, the index goes with it. And you have to be on the latest version of Windows 10, and then it will just work.
What's your benchmark on the OneDrive on-demand sync files? So you're saying that on-demand files, it syncs super fast, but how fast is it? Can you put a number to it?
So there's
the two parts to it.
Yeah.
One is syncing the placeholder files, and that you get, I think we have seen speeds of 300 placeholder files per second. So when they pop up something, they'll see that right away. And the syncing really depends on the size of the file and the bandwidth available. So if you're in a multi-user session, you can have a network fair share. What it does is it limits how much each user could have. So as an IT admin, you could say, hey, this user gets only 10 Mbps or something like that. There are different tools that can happen. So you as an IT admin can decide how fast the network can be. But otherwise, it's basically a connection within Azure, which is at, I think, 100 Gbps or something like that. So it's like insane speeds.
It would be better than, literally better than anything that you would probably see in a normal deployment of Windows 10 today with files on demand. Similarly, though, when we're talking about this, but on a deployment for Windows Server where the session host for the user is not on Azure, but it's somewhere on a customer's on-premise data center, that one is completely variable on the connection between that data center and our Microsoft commercially hosted services.
Thank you.
Yeah. No other questions? Thank you all so much. Oh, go ahead.
Just one. There was the tile you had up where you were talking about support dates around different versions of Windows and Windows Server and Office.
Yeah.
There was one at the top against Windows Server 2019, and it said NA, and I wasn't clear on what that meant.
So it means, and let me pull it up. So that means specifically what we're talking about is Office 365 ProPlus support on all of our different operating systems. Office 365 ProPlus will not be supported on Windows Server 2019. Office 2019 perpetual, that is what will be supported on Windows Server 2019. Okay. Thank you all so much. We really appreciate it. As we had earlier on the slide, we'll take this last question, but I'll just finish saying this, is we'll pull up the slide with the feedback. Please give us feedback, and then for anybody that we want to talk to afterwards, offline, please stay here and we'll connect. Thank you.